Hey, welcome to episode 86 of the Is That Normal podcast. We are so glad that you've joined us today. We're going to be taking a look at our recent survey results and hearing from you, our listeners, about some of the things that have helped you, as well as some of the things that you're continuing to look for as we try to raise our families to follow Christ. Today, Randall is not able to join us. He'll be returning with us on our next episode as we talk about helping our children find the help that they need. But today we're going to be digging into these survey results, and we'll just have to talk about Randall's beard behind his back. Well, we just want to really thank everyone who regularly joins us and listens to our podcast and follows our content, and also just really appreciate those who responded to our survey and gave us some feedback as well as some insight into what we can do to help you. And we really do hope that this is a platform to create a community where we can share ideas and help each other navigate this really difficult, challenge, and yet wonderful experience we have of raising our children, but raising them to love Jesus and follow Him and dedicate their lives to Him. And as we got our survey results in, we really saw that was also on your all hearts. All of your hearts. As we looked at our responses, one of the biggest areas of concern seemed to revolve around spiritual development and how we can be equipped to do that better. A couple of specific responses we got where one person said they really wanted to make sure that their children were getting connection with others that center on Christ. And another said that they really worry about their children having the strength to withstand spiritual opposition, and that's on all of our hearts as we are Christian parents trying to navigate this world we live in. And so we appreciate your feedback on that. And as we looked at the results, there's a few areas that just kind of kept popping up that we know that we're going to hit on in some of the upcoming episodes, so be watching for these. But here's some things that we're going to be dealing with because of what you said in your survey results. We're going to be talking about developing strong, healthy relationships with our children. That's a continuing, ongoing heartbeat of ours, is helping equip and talk about some of the ways that we can have better conversations, make deeper connections, and continue to be influenced in our children's lives as they grow into adulthood. We're also going to talk about how to resolve conflicts. If you're a human and you live with other humans, you're going to have conflicts. I know at my house we had some of those just this morning, and there's just a challenge in all of that. But there's also some tools that we can use to help diffuse situations as well as make a positive outcome of those. And so we're going to have an episode all dedicated to that coming up in just a few episodes away. And then we're going to just continue looking for helpful book resources to train us as parents on how to better spiritually develop our families. And so we're just going to try to bring a lot of that content coming up in the next few months. And so we're looking forward to that and appreciate your feedback to help us kind of dial in those things. There was a couple of more results I wanted to share that are kind of fun results. We did get one response in regards to Randall's beard, and they simply said it was someone that who knows Randall's wife, and because they care about Randall's wife, and they know that Randall's wife cares about Randall, that they're okay with the beard. So that's kind of like being okay with a beard because of association, I guess. So that was kind of fun. And then another is that we did have one poor soul who said that they had given up coffee and asked us to pray for them on that final question response. And so we are praying for you. And with all of that said, we just decided that since also another person said that their favorite episode was our episode 8, number 8, which was all about Rites of Passage, but also about coffee, that today, with the absence of Randall, that we would do a recast of episode 8 on Rites of Passage and when to let your kids drink coffee. So hope you enjoy episode 8 from our early days of Is That Normal podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 8 of Is That Normal, the podcast.
Randall and I are something of coffee connoisseurs, and today we're going to be making, here live, single origin, whole bean, French pressed Panamanian coffee.
This is exciting. You can probably hear the pot boiling as we speak.
Yes, and so Randall, you want to show them what we're going to be brewing up here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these are Panamanian beans, the Duran brand that we usually come back with in bulk from Panama. So this is a fresh bag we just opened today that came back with us on our last Panama trip. So there's always excitement when we open the bag for the first time because we get to take that big first sniff of the beans.
So maybe why don't you tell us your first experiences or memories of coffee becoming a thing for you?
Probably when I was in high school. Well, no, let me back up. In the Boggs family, coffee is just something that everyone drinks and does. My grandma's house, her coffee pot ran 24/7. It didn't matter if you showed up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning. The coffee pot was on and there was fresh coffee in it. And so it just kind of became like the place that everybody knew. Didn't really matter if you were invited or not. You knew you could show up and there would be hot coffee. And so that's kind of where it started. And then when I got into high school, we started going downtown Springfield to some of the cool coffee houses down there and just kind of getting into a little bit more of the fancier coffees or getting to be a little bit more of a connoisseur. And so really got to where I loved to try new coffees and go to different places. And so that continues today.
Very good. So I'm going to share my experience with coffee. But first, we got to grind these beans.
Okay,
so we're going to count to 10. Right. Very good. So I know for me, coffee started very early as well. My dad was a coffee drinker, and I think I was about 12, maybe a little younger than that when my dad first started letting me drink coffee with him, and that was a big deal. At first, maybe it wasn't so much about the taste as it was about doing something that my dad did that I didn't get to do until I was a little bit older, and so that's going to tie a lot into what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, in my family, it was always when you get old enough to get hair on your chest. That was the the telltale time that you were allowed to drink coffee. But today we're going to talk about why when starting to drink coffee and other milestones or rites of passage are actually really important in the development of your children.
Right, our water is ready here, and we're gonna start this process of letting this steep for about 4 minutes, and then we're gonna have hot coffee.
Fantastic. Well, as we mentioned earlier, today we're going to talk about a concept that you may know better as rites of passage, or having milestones for our children, and how that having that concept in our house is important. And you can literally use something just as simple as the first cup of coffee as an important milestone in your family's development or your children's things that they get to look forward to.
Yeah, I know for us that literally has become a thing. Again, really borrowing back from what my dad did, let me drink coffee when I was about 10, 11, 12. I've let my kids start drinking coffee with me when they hit double digits. That's literally a standard in our house. Because they see me drink, I drink a lot of coffee, and my wife drinks a lot of coffee, and so every kid, as they've kind of hit that milestone of 10, they've gotten to start drinking coffee with us in the morning. And now we're up to, we do about 3 French presses every morning to cover all the coffee that we drink.
with more to come.
Yeah.
So tell us why is that important? Why is having a milestone like getting your first cup of coffee important?
Well, a little bit of it, like I said, is nostalgia for me. Passing on something that was generational. It's fun. It's something we get to enjoy together as a family, and so it kind of makes memories that way. Coffee is really good. I always tell people if they put cream and sugar in their coffee, it's because they're drinking bad coffee. If you have the kind of coffee we're making today, it's good stuff. But really, it's also this concept of building expectation into our kids to help them with developmental milestones. So at double digits, my kids get to start drinking coffee, but they also get their own zone in our house that is their responsibility to clean every day. And so their chore load just about doubles at that point. Yeah. My daughter Ruthie is currently 9, and we were sitting around drinking coffee the other day, and she asked if she could drink coffee, and I said, "You're getting really close, Ruth." And I said, "So, when you hit double digits, you're going to get coffee, and your chores are going to double." And she said, "What?" And so she kind of had this double take moment.
With privilege comes responsibility. So life lessons.
Yeah. So so that's just one though of the milestones we kind of created in our house to try to create both that expectation as well as a sense of responsibility for our kids. We live on a little hobby farm, and so most of our kids, as they've gotten into those preteen, teen years, we've let them start little farm businesses, buy an animal, raise it up, maybe sell eggs or sell the animals that they get from that, sell babies. And so that's kind of a cool thing, but again, comes with responsibility. Somewhere in there, when they start making a little bit of money that way, we get them a checking account. I think, and that's been various ages. One didn't get till they're 13. I think one got when they were 11. So we give them a bank account and teach them how to balance it, teach them how to write checks. It was really cool. My son, when he first started driving, he had an older vehicle that needed some repairs to get it up and ready for him to drive it. And so he went in and wrote a check out for the repairs. And the people behind the counter were like, "Whoa, I'm not sure I've ever seen a kid your age write a check before," But it was, it's both significance as well as a rite of passage to do those things.
And do you find that even those things that maybe are more of a responsibility, that there becomes even some anticipation of even those things that maybe are considered, extra chores or extra duties that they begin to actually anticipate getting to do some of those things?
Yeah, and we are on a path and a journey, and we're learning all the time. We told our oldest son, "You're an experiment, and we're going to make all sorts of mistakes with you." Guinea pig. And so, but we've really learned, and as the younger ones have seen the older ones do that, that's really become a big deal for those younger kids to go, when do I get to do what Ethan gets to do? When do I get to do what Shiloh gets to do? And so that's really helped in that. And so today in our culture we kind of have an interesting thing as far as rites of passage and significant tasks are concerned, because as you go back in history, there are in most cultures these definitive rites of passage moments where you are no longer a child, you're now an adult. And that could be a variety of things, but maybe it's going on your first hunt with the men, or maybe it's getting married, because in a lot of cultures, it was like childhood, and then you were married, and that was just, you became an adult. But we've now got this beautiful thing called adolescence. And it's this really awkward place between childhood and adulthood, and nobody really knows when you become adult. When did you become an adult, Randall?
That's a really good question, because I think especially maybe more now than ever, it can vary widely from one family or one child to another.
And I think our coffee's ready, so I'm going to pour some coffee up here. But why don't you tell us some of the big milestones you saw as you grew up for you? Like, what were some of those moments you look forward to as you moved from preteen into teen into adult?
For me, which pause for a second. I have to point out that I brought my favorite coffee cup ever. This was my grandmother's coffee, one of my grandmother's coffee cups. It's like 1970s era Tupperware, and it's my favorite cup to drink coffee out of. So just had to throw that in there. So, but for me, getting my driver's license, that was huge. That was the thing I looked most forward to, from the time I got to be about 11, 12, 13, right at that age where I really started wanting to have some independence, and realizing, okay, for me, that independence came with the ability to drive and go do something on my own. And so for me, getting my driver's license was huge. Graduating from high school, kind of moving out on my own, getting, having my first, even really going back before that, having my own room for the first time was a huge milestone because, with siblings, we shared rooms for so long and so much of my childhood. The point where I got to have my own room was like a really big deal for me.
My kids get to do that when they move out of my house. That's what I've told them.
Another big milestone for me that a lot of kids now is also a big milestone, but it came at a very different time for me, was getting my first cell phone, which happened when I was in college, which is, most kids by the time they get to college now have had a cell phone for, 7, 8, 9 years or more. So that was a huge deal. I got my first Nokia phone, and
that's one of the interesting things, even as you do some research on current adolescents, is that getting a phone is a bigger milestone for a lot of kids than getting a car. So much so that a lot of kids aren't getting their driver's license till much, much later. Whereas when I was a kid, it was like the day I turned 16, that's what I was doing. And so did all my friends. But for them, that phone has been that portal into a different social atmosphere.
Some independence that comes with that as well.
Yeah. And so, we've set a pretty static age for our kids to get their cell phone, which is 15, which is a lot later than a lot of kids are getting them. And actually, I think next week we're going to have a whole episode where we talk about devices and talk about some of those things and some philosophies of that. But yeah, so those are kind of some of the things that are milestones. And so the question that comes into that is, when do you become an adult? And I think that's the struggle so many kids are facing. Like, do I become an adult when I hit puberty? Do I become an adult when I get a cell phone? Do I become an adult when I start driving a car? Do I become an adult when I graduate high school or college or get married or buy a house? And that period of time where those things are happening, that window is getting broader and broader. And so it makes it really confusing and challenging and frustrating. And, and this is a book that I've had for a long time. This was written in the late 1990s. This is called "You Want to Pierce What?" by Dr. Walker Moore. And Walker actually came to our church right around the time this book came out and spoke to our church and spoke to our teenagers. And I bought his book. And really, it had a lot of things that, as I look back at this book, that had a huge impact on me, both my youth ministry and then later on in my parenting, because he talks a lot about rites of passage. He talks a lot about significant tasks and how to create a atmosphere of responsibility for our kids in a culture where that's not normal. And so he's actually got a newer book that has some of these same concepts called Rite of Passage Parenting, and so we'll have links to both of those in our notes page, but some really good resources that flesh out even some more of the things we're talking about today. But one of the things he says is, with all that confusion of that adolescence, a lot of it has created a loss of significant tasks. So you get this rite of passage thing that's like an event or a ceremony, which we'll talk about more in the Jewish culture here in a second, but that says you're no longer a child, you're now an adult. Well, we've kind of erased that a little bit, or at least blurred that line. But he says another thing that's changed in our culture is we no longer have significant tasks, which he describes as something that if you don't do it, other people significantly suffer. So, so one of the things he points out is that most kids today, if you ask them what jobs they have at their house, it's going to be make my bed, take out the trash.
Yeah.
Who's going to suffer if I don't make my bed?
Yeah. Nobody.
And you know what happens if you don't take out the trash?
It stinks, but
Mom takes out the trash.
Someone will eventually take out the trash. Yes.
Yeah. So that's another part of this. As we create rites of passage, we want them also to be things that create a significance in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that even if you go back just 15 or 20 years, I think if you asked for, what are some of those significant tasks, I think there would have been maybe some variance in answers, but there would have been some, a handful of answers that you would have gotten from a majority of people. And now I think that's a very wide open open-ended question with lots of different theories and opinions on that.
And I think that's interesting because we have very different probably experiences of this, but I'd say we both grew up in a situation where we had significant tasks. What were some of the things that you think would fall in that category for you growing up?
Mowing the lawn was the big one. That was the one that I probably dreaded the most, and many times worked twice as hard to avoid doing. But mowing the lawn, there's an excitement that gets of when you first get to do that, though, of I'm old enough to operate a machine that could maim me or worse. But that was a big one. Taking out the trash. When we had pets, taking care of pets, feeding, watering, those types of things. But I know for me, obviously keeping my room clean and those types of things. But yeah, probably the big one for me was my job was mowing the lawn.
Yeah, and I think I like what you pointed out about animals too, because I think there's such a interesting piece of that. I grew up on a farm, and my job was to get up and feed and water animals every day and every night. And if I didn't do that job, there were significant consequences. Yeah. And one of the things that we've been really grateful is that we've been able to do some of that for our kids, and they've had to learn really hard lessons of life there. There's been life and death moments. There's been things that didn't make it for one reason or another, and we've suffered loss, and but they've had to deal with that, and so that's been really, really healthy and important for our kids.
Yeah. Well, so what are some suggestions on where maybe for parents today of places to start when it comes to figuring out maybe what are some of those milestones and what are some of those maybe rites of passages that they can put into place in their family to maybe help kids have that thing to look towards and have anticipation towards, or also help them just move from that stage of adolescence into adulthood.
Yeah. I think one of the things is definitely setting age-appropriate chores or significant tasks at your home. And that's been a huge part of our culture. We I hope one day to have an episode where we kind of talk more about like our routine and our schedule, but we've got a very structured way that kids move into jobs that if they don't get it done, the whole family suffers. So we tend to do zones when the kids get to double digits. So you're in charge of the kitchen, which means cleaning the dishes, which means sweeping the floor, which means putting food away, all of those kind of things. You're in charge of laundry, which again at my house with 6 kids and 2 adults, that's a big job. And then we've got other kids who do some of the outside jobs, and and then everybody's responsible for their stuff in their room. And then we'll rotate those because that's another piece. We don't want to overload one kid and not load the other.
Sure.
But at the same time, based on your children's ability and age, it's okay to withhold some things from certain kids. The tendency in our culture is we want to be fair, and so it's kind of like that. Well, it's your birthday, but I'm going to get all your siblings a birthday present too, just so they don't feel bad. Like that that's not helping.
Yes.
And so it's okay to say you're old enough to do this, you're not old enough to do that. But we don't want to overload a kid with too many chores either. So we try to keep a balance in all of those things. And so the other thing I'd say about that age appropriate significant task or chores is, they may not do it perfect, but if you can get a 4 or 5-year-old to do the dishes or to fold laundry or to take out the trash, it's better to start them at that age and train them into bigger tasks. Because if you wait till they're 13, guess what? They're not going to want to do anything, So I think the earlier you can start that, the better.
And sometimes doing that maybe requires a little bit more patience and time than it would even take for you just to do it yourself. And sometimes even for me, and I even experienced this in childhood, sometimes the tendency is to, want to say, well, that's taking too long, or you're not doing that right. Get out of the way and just let me do it. And that's a difficult thing to refrain from sometimes, but it's important to give them the opportunity to learn and to make mistakes and walk them through how to fix that. But it does. It takes an investment of time and effort to train someone to do something like that.
And our ultimate goal, we have to always come back to this. Our ultimate goal is we want to raise good humans, and and spiritual goals I think are always going to be highest for us, because more than anything, my biggest goal with my children, my family is I want to create an environment where they can get to know and love the Lord and serve Him and show. So that's really important, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But also, we want to help them grow into be responsible adults. And so, so we start out with things like cleaning tasks and house management tasks, but then we move into things like budgeting, and when they start making money, how are you going to save? How are you going to give? How are you going to be responsible with your money? They graduate into certain bills in our house, cell phone type things, car insurance type things. They graduate into those. And then even giving them responsibilities as far as doing errands for the household, taking care of family budgeting issues. So we want to move them into being able to function. Cooking's a huge one. All of my girls can cook well enough that if my wife's gone, I don't go hungry. And so it's really great that they can do that. But it's because we've taken the time and letting them get flour and burn things on the stove. All that's happened, but we've done that to get them ready for those kind of things.
Absolutely.
And then I think the last thing on that I would kind of say is we also want to help them get involved in something of eternal value. So we want to create age appropriate, significant tasks. We want to graduate them into more adult tasks as they get older, and then we want to get them involved in something that's going to last beyond them. And so so at our church, we've kind of held to that rite of passage thing, that there's certain things at our church you don't get to do until a certain age. One of the biggest being our missions trips.
Yeah.
And so, we've had kids who build so much excitement and anticipation getting to go on our Panama trip because they've watched their older siblings, they've watched older students do that, and they can't wait till that day that they get to go on that trip and serve the church beyond our walls, beyond our borders. That's a really great thing.
And I've seen that have so much more. Those trips have so much more of an impact, or hold so much more value in those students' lives, and how just how it changes them because of the anticipation and seeing people come back and talk about the things that they experienced there, and just building up that anticipation. And then when they finally do get to go, I think they're just so much more open and ready and expecting of something transformational to happen, because they've seen that, and now they've just been waiting for their opportunity. And so I fully agree that that's been a huge thing.
But the big thing to come back from that is it doesn't start there. They don't show up to go to a Panama mission trip, and that's the first thing they've served at. We want to encourage them from very early to be involved in one way or another in the church, whether that's being a part of the children's choir when they're in elementary school, and as they move up from there, we've got lots of kids who serve real significant tasks at our church. We're on technology, sing in different worship settings.
Move chairs and set up tables.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So that's a great tell for me if a kid's going to be able to be successful on a mission trip is, do they jump in and serve when a servant opportunity's there? So we try to graduate them into those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other things within the church that are kind of those moments of that have eternal value, but that are kind of rites of passages, or things that we kind of hold to certain age?
I think it's really cool. We've developed our ministries at our church to be that we've got a elementary school, a middle school, a high school, a college ministry, but those are also a very integral, interwoven part of the church as a whole. But there are certain things that you don't get to do until you get to middle school ministry. It's been really wonderful. Your wife has been a huge part of this, of starting our kids in middle school, learning some instruments, memorizing scripture, standing up in front of kids and sharing announcements, just getting kids comfortable with talking about their faith in front of other kids, so much so that when they get to high school, we've got kids who are ready to MC events, to plan and organize events, to set up for events, to be in a worship team, to share their testimony. And then as we develop them, we've watched a lot of those kids when the adult worship team needs a fill-in. Boy, they're already ready because they've had years of experience of doing those things under their belt. Just super cool.
And I can speak firsthand from the worship side of it, but it covers a whole gamut of things. But it has been so amazing just to see as our kids' ministry comes up and they train up children and prepare them, that readies them for that transition to middle school. And then they grow in a different way when they get to middle school, and that readies them for that transition to high school. And, like you said, it's almost like we have I jokingly say we have a farm system, because we really do. And I'm so thankful, for our church and the churches that are able to be blessed in the way that we have been, to have, just a consistent string of leaders and future leaders that come through and are trained up, and by the time they get out of high school, it's just a continuation. They're serving in the church, or the things that they're doing in ministry are just a continuation of the things that they've done since they were a child, and I think that is just a huge blessing, and I know has been something that I've seen have long-lasting kingdom impacts.
Yeah, and so I would just really encourage as a parent, if you don't know what the opportunities are at your church to plug students in, your child into something, talk to some of the leaders. If you do know, it's just really important as early as you can to get them involved in something significant, so that they can have that experience and that habit of doing significant things that have eternal impact. I think it's really
absolutely
important. Yeah.
And those there's so many opportunities, no matter what your interest or your gifting is. You don't have to play an instrument or sing or even be someone that's comfortable getting up in front of people to be able to have those significant, long-lasting, impactful tasks and roles in ministry. We have, I go back to it, but we have so many students that are just those ones that are always willing to help clean up after an event, or move tables, or carry things, or just be available, and that's just as significant in some ways. I feel even more significant.
Yeah. It takes all those parts to make
absolutely
it happen. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that was some really good stuff from back in the early days of when we just had started this podcast, just a few weeks in. And so I hope you enjoyed that. If you hadn't heard it before, or if you had heard it before, there were some good refreshers and reminders in there of how we create those places where our kids have natural progression points, things to look forward to, just some really great content there. We're really glad you joined us today. I will be back on our next episode with Randall in 2 weeks as we talk about how to help parents find the help that their kids need. That's a lot of helps in there. So we're going to be doing that. But until then, remember, be abnormal.